What's good? It's your boy Hollywood Chuck. I'm here with Gabrielle Lyles.
Hey.
Did I pronounce that right?
Gabrielle Lyles.
Gabrielle Lyles. And my lady Kay. I don't know your last name, Kay.
Preston.
Kay Preston. And it's Mental Health Month, y'all. So we wanted to tap in on the mental health side of things and talk about different triggers, how to, cope. Some people say that you can't. Me and Kay was having a candid discussion before we got on here, and she was saying that it's really not something that you conquer. It's like something that you deal with and cope with. So we're going to cover some of them things. And so Gabrielle,
Gabby.
Yeah, Gabby for short, is a therapist. Both of you are therapists. Well, you're a counselor and you're a therapist.
I'm an LPC. I'm a licensed professional counselor. But that's the license, but the actual profession is mental health therapist. Yeah.
How long did it take you to obtain your license?
Oh, Jesus. So I had to finish my bachelor's first, which that took me a little bit of time because I'm hard-headed. So that took me about 5 or 6 years. And then I had to finish my master's, which took me an additional 4 years. So
you gave the game about 10 good years.
Yeah, 10 good years. 10 good
years.
Yeah.
And so what made you go into that field? What possessed you to become a mental health therapist? It's so many things that you could be besides dealing with people every day who have mental issues when you got your own issues. Because people got their own issues going on. So what in your heart, what in your sweetheart made you decide to say, hey, I want to help people. I want to really help them deal with whatever they got going on?
Man, I don't know. I forgot about the part where I was going to actually have to be dealing with people when I decided this. But I had my own experience with a black therapist, with a black mental health therapist. Mm-hmm. At the time, I think I was pretty exposed to things, but I had never met a black mental health therapist before, right?
Okay.
Didn't even know that there were options.
You like to share their name?
I don't remember her name. I will look into it. But it was her. So they were here in Cleveland. And her and her husband were mental health therapists. So my family, we started going to see her husband for family therapy. Mm-hmm. And then I started seeing her individually. I was about 21 going through transitions and stuff. And she just helped me so much. All this stuff.
What was some of the things that she was able to help you with that had a lasting impression on you to the point where you were saying, this is what I want to do?
Yeah. So, figuring out what I wanted to do with my life.
That was one of the main things.
Yeah, figuring out what I wanted to do with my life. Figuring out, I was 21. My plan that I had originally went out into the world with was not what happened. Mm-hmm. As, most emerging adults, you got this plan, but then you go out into the world and life hits you, right? And you get a reality check. And so the reality check was rough for me. And the reality check was rough for me. And just needing to talk to somebody. I think I remember being inside a relationship that probably wasn't too healthy. And, we were able to talk about those.
Was that one of the triggers that, a unhealthy relationship, was that the trigger that kind of as a teen, was you coming out of high school in this relationship, that somebody that you had been with?
So I actually had probably just started that relationship when I was 20. So I had been into that relationship for probably a little bit over a year when I started going to go see this therapist.
Mm-hmm. And it was a bad relationship. It wasn't.
Oh yeah.
I
was 21.
It was
I was 2021. Yes, I was 2021. We're not gonna point the finger either which way, because I could think about
experiences and knowledge. What is some of the things that we kind of lack when we're young. So that's why we have kind of shaky experiences early. You know what I'm saying? Because we lack knowledge.
Right. And so I was 21. Yeah. I had the knowledge of a 21-year-old. You know? And so the relationship took me through an identity crisis. We'll say that, right?
Just talking about that.
Yeah. That combined with and I think people, you go through them periodically through life, right? All the time.
sure.
You know, you're consistently changing. But so I was having one that was like one of my first ones, right, as an adult. And I had developed depression, but didn't understand that then, right? And had developed as a kid, but had never talked to anybody.
Right.
And also,
coming from like coming up, you was dealing with household issues, things that were happening at home, school.
I think like most kids, right? You know, like most kids, you know, like
growing pains, going
through adolescence, right? You know, you're changing. You know, you want to be an adult, but you're not adult enough to be that, right?
Right.
You know, you want all this responsibility, but really don't know what you're asking for. You know, so you know, so growing pains. But I had never talked to anybody because there also was a stigma. There still is a stigma
in the hood. Did you grow up in the hood?
I didn't. I grew up in the suburbs. So but
it's the same. It's the same.
We still had it inside our black household, right? And
like we don't talk about our issues like that.
What happened in our house, stay in our house.
We kind of act out more than talk about it.
Right. And I went to college. I realized I started talking more, right? I was very, very sheltered, but went to college, started talking more, realized that, you know, some things I had went through were universal, you know, sharing experiences with other kids my age.
I went through that too.
Yeah, right. And you know, the stages in life. And, you know, so then realize some experiences were not, right? Some experiences, you probably should go talk to somebody about this, right?
Yeah.
Right? No, actually, that's actually not that healthy, right? And then, so I can't remember why we ended up at family counseling. I think I ended back up at my parents' house. I moved back in because I had went away to college, and I moved back in, and that was there was a lot of term.
It's like, I just moved back in.
Yeah.
Freedom aborted.
Yeah, right. They try to take my life back over, right? And I'm like, no. Yeah. You know, I've been out here. Yeah, I've been out here.
I'm out here.
Right. I'm not a baby anymore, you know, and so, you know, they wanted me to shuffle back into that, and I was very, very headstrong, you know. And so I think that's why we ended up at family therapy. But family therapy, so it was a black man.
And this was the lady and the man, I mean, the young lady and the young man you met, or, you know.
They were a little bit older. So probably like 50s, 40s, 50s.
So they've been around.
Yeah. And so watching this black man, we went and sat down and we talked to this black man and this black woman about our problems. And talking to both of them just felt, you know, just like very natural, very at home, right?
Right.
You know, in the medical world, you're used to.
What made it easy to speak with them?
Because they look like me. You know, like we were going through we had black household problems, and you know, I was raised in white America. You know, I went to private school and things like that. Was privileged, you know, with going to private school and then going to college and things like that, right? And there's a point of alienation there where you realize that they are not dealing with the same things as you, right? And so, right. So, you know, the cultural differences. And so, I think you learn at an early age to keep some things to yourself, right? Yeah. And
is it because? Do you think it's because? Do you ladies think it's because it's embarrassing that you want to keep these things to yourself, or do you think that it's just like it's nobody's business?
I think it's both, right? I think you got like two things going. You've got society that's not very. They're becoming accepting of black culture, right? Like black culture is in right now. You know, black culture is dope. Everybody wants to be a part of black culture without being black. But you know, when we were growing up, it still wasn't that in, right? You still didn't share all the things that were happening inside your black household. They were ghetto.
I think,
right.
For me, it was more so like that conditioning piece, that what happens in our house stays in
that
our
too.
house.
Yeah.
So also that's the other half. Finding a comfortable person who identify. I went to Lakewood schools for a minute and very diverse schools, and it's like, how can I open up to talk to you about my issues? Because you
cannot relate.
You don't understand.
Yeah. You don't understand. So if I do see an opening, like, oh, maybe I could share. It's like we speaking French to each other. You don't understand my struggles, my issues. And so I think that for me was that conditioning, and then just being like the kind of what for, because you won't completely understand them. You know, we may go to the suburban school together, but our struggle's still not the same.
Our struggles are not like. So fast forward to you know, you growing up, you go to college, and then you start Holistic Mental Health Healing Association. Is that right?
Yep. Holistic Mental Health Healing Association. Yes.
So you started your own business. You were so inspired by this couple that you went out and started your own business. And what was that experience like, being in the mental health field, being a therapist? Like, how is that experience? Because every entrepreneur can understand like the grind, the hustle, things like that. But like, you actually dealing with people and their thoughts, their emotions, their feelings, years of trauma. Like, how did you, how do you balance that?
It's rough.
Because you also got your own life.
Yeah. It's rough. Like, you know, so you got to have your own therapist, period, right? You got to have your own therapist. I've got my own supervisor. I've got 2 of those, right? I've got my own personal, and then I have one that, you know, the different agencies that I do contract work with provide me with. So, you know, having that checks and balance, I got my team that I'm constantly calling and like, hey, you know, like running through your day and what
that's
you
all
did.
a part of the business.
Yeah. And then so I have my own supervisor who's they're a few steps ahead of me, you know, more years of experience, you know, run things through them. Have my own therapist to talk about my own personal things. Right?
So therapists have therapists.
Yes, it
Both
is highly recommended.
Have therapists.
It's highly recommended, right? You know, like you said, you got your own problems, and then you know, one of the things is you're talking to people. You're building relationships with people, right?
Yeah.
People are telling you things that they may not have thought to tell anybody, or that they may not want to tell anybody, right?
Yeah.
You know, and there has to be a confidence piece in there. There has to be a, you know, of course, you know, we've got the confidentiality piece, right?
Yeah, you can't tell
right, and you can't necessarily tell anybody, and so, you know, you're able to discuss certain things with the rest of their mental health care team in, you know, context, right?
Let me ask you a question. Is it a difference between a counselor and a therapist?
No. There are a few different...
Just a word.
Yeah, it's just a word. It's just a word. It's an interchangeable word, right? Both of them are the same licensure, mean the same thing, right? That's funny. I got my master's degree is clinical mental health counseling.
Right.
Is that my master's degree? Mm-hmm. It's clinical mental health counseling. I got a master's of science in clinical mental health counseling. Yeah. And then my licensure is licensed professional counselor. But the marriage and family therapist is actually a marriage and family therapist. But I'm actually licensed to cover more than they are. Right?
So it's a different sector of therapies, counselors.
Yeah. There's different sectors, but the degree path that I chose was one that was going to allow me to work inside all sectors, right? Mm-hmm. But when you choose your degree path, you could be specialized in school counselor, right? That's the actual licensure. Mental marriage and family therapist. So I originally went to school for that. Marriage and family therapist. That's a separate licensure, but of equivalence to mine, right? You could be a rehabilitational therapist.
Yeah, it's all type of sectors of therapy.
Yeah.
So, because you got physical therapy and then you got the mental sector of therapy, and so, you say you deal with kids, Kay?
So yeah, my specialty is like that teenage, that like pre-adolescent, so anywhere from like 11 to girls that are like 16, 17. Mm-hmm. I really connect with them. A lot of people find them difficult,
And what's the name of your nonprofit?
Experience the People.
And so that's where you teach
so
and counsel through.
No, so I do kind of the same thing as Gabby, like contract out to different agencies, you know, kind of see where that need is, what those caseloads look like, and I strictly more so focus on like combining art and therapeutic interventions with the nonprofit because you know, we were talking, I am a freelance artist, and so that was kind of what led me to the mental health field, knowing that I wanted to merge those two passions of mine, you know, creating an impact there.
That's
so I, like I said, I do teach art, and you know, but right now my focus is making those merge in a way where it, you know,
art and therapy.
Yep, and where it impacts community, you know, where that's a resource. People can understand that art is a therapeutic resource. You can utilize that, and you know, tapping in with that community. That's kind of what led me to it, because as you know, adolescent girl, I didn't talk much. I was very much so to myself, and I was more expressive through drawing. When you know, when we were talking about that,
put it on paper,
that conditioning piece,
canvas.
Yep, and not really knowing who to talk to or what to talk to or what to talk about. I would just create. I would create the things that were going on my mind.
That was better than doing something negative.
Yeah, it's where I found my outlet. I mean, granted, you know, I went through the graffiti girl stage, you know, like, you know, that whole, like, I'm doing art, but I'm also doing
rebel art.
It's
kind of like rebel art.
Yeah, and, you know, stuff like that. But it just was easier for me that way because as I've transitioned into adulthood, I've learned to communicate better. I didn't, you know, like we said, that information piece, I wasn't a strong communicator. So that was my way. That was my way. I remember I would get in trouble because all my school papers would be full of doodles with no work. Like I will.
What are you over here doing?
Like, you know, or sometimes the work will be complete and right, but it's like no one asked you to turn this math sheet into a colored book. And that just was like, you know, my way of channeling my energy, my issues, my problems. I knew I wanted to take it serious a couple years ago when my mom had got diagnosed with stage 4 cancer. And that was like probably the worst year of my life. I had so much going on in my life during that time. And spending that time with her towards the end, and was like, you know, take art serious. And then I realized during that time that's all I did. Your
mom told you to take art serious?
Yeah, she had always. But during that time, I had took care of her at home hospice. So every time that I would be there with her, I'd be painting, I'd be drawing.
And how was that? How was, you know? And my condolences with your mom and everything. Is how were you able to deal with other people's problems and deal with your, because that's something that is very touching.
So
you know?
During that time, I wasn't really in the field.
Okay, you had to take a break.
I had to take a break on life. You know, this is the one person. You know, this person.
Do therapists do that often? Do they kind of like take
burnout is a real thing. So burnout
is
when your capacity is reached. It's done. Yeah. You know, oftentimes we care a lot about the people we serve, and like she said, creating that difference between these are my issues and those are your issues, and I have to separate them because am I bringing your issues home? And you know, am I holding on to that? I mean, Gabby could tell you when you first get in this field, you have to learn that boundary because it will tear you up. She is like,
because y'all transferring energy, spirits between people. People putting a heavy burden on your brain,
or you know, you leave. Did I do enough? You know, especially because you know me and Gabby are in the community, and so these are like really high needs cases. Like some of the stuff we hear, wow, right? And you go home and you be like, well, you know, did I make the right call? Did I say the right things? Will you be okay? She can tell you. She's like my mentor. I have called her crying. She's been like, Makayla, go to bed.
Man.
Go to bed.
Just get some rest.
Like, go kiss your
Yeah.
child. Go play with your baby.
Yeah.
Like.
But coming from the urban community, a lot of the homes, like as we've been going through the years, have become unstable. You do have unstable homes in the subs or whatever like that. But you still have kind of like a little bit of core family.
It's not about the family. It's about access to resources. And that is the biggest thing. And that's why for the urban community is very important because, especially with like the kind of work I do, just connecting them with those resources that are readily available to children who are in the suburbs. You know, it's that I go and I talk about programs, and it's like these programs have been around forever. People in urban communities never heard of them because they're not pushed to
access.
So the access versus when you may be in an urban community and you don't have access to these resource programs, when you maybe could have did a summer program and it could have saved your ass for the summer, and you might not have gotten what you got into, and also that support portion, you know, like you can go to these community resource programs and meet a mentor, have some support, have an outside person. I don't feel like in our urban communities they really get connected with that, right? It's my teacher, then school's out for the summer. We talked about that condition and not really feeling comfortable. Hey, you might not understand what I'm going through, and 9 times out of 10 from my own experience, they don't, right? I'm in and out of a lot of schools on just the work side and also teaching. And, you know, that's something I really feel like needs to be addressed. There is a cultural disconnect. And, you know, I encourage more black and brown people, like, go be therapists, go give these kids somebody who looks like them and who can identify with them that space.